One paranormal experience, two witnesses. Stay tuned to discover what my best friend and I saw. This is an experience that altered my friend's perception of reality for the remainder of her life. Hello, I'm Nefer Kefri, your hostess with the ghostess, and you're watching True Tales of the Paranormal. In today's episode, I am discussing an experience that occurred in either 1981 or 1982. My best friend Debbie and I were on our way either to shop at the mall or go see a movie. This was in Northern Illinois, and we were in between our hometown of Waukegan and the town in which the Hawthorne Mall was located, Libertyville. The highway that connects these two cities is Route 21. It's not a huge highway. At the time, I believe it had 2 lanes of traffic on either side. Maybe it was just one. And we were in Debbie's Chevy Chevette. It was her first car. And we were on our way to have a good time at the mall, or maybe we were going to see a movie. Neither one of us can remember. And Debbie and I are still in contact. And I asked her one day, would you mind summarizing what you saw on that day? I could compare our two experiences as best to my own recollection of what occurred. And she was like, sure. So she was really nice. She typed up an email for me, and I will include it as a screenshot here. And so you can go over it for yourselves. But this is what happened to Debbie and I on a summer day in 1981 or 1982. On our way to the mall or the movies. Either way, it was going to be a fun time for us. And Debbie was the one who was driving, of course, because we were in her car. And we're along Route 21, and all of a sudden she's braking because we see 2 monks crossing the road. These monks never bothered to look for oncoming traffic in either direction. It just started moving. And I was like, Debbie, brake. She goes, I see him. And so she's braking, because you've got to remember, 1981, 1982, we had been taught how to drive in high school. And we graduated the class of 1981. So we were still relatively young and inexperienced drivers. And I wanted to be sure that she started to slow down, quite a ways away. Which she did. She was an excellent driver. And so these 2 monks start crossing the road right in front of us from left to right. Now, Route 21 runs north and south. So the monks would have been traveling, we were going south toward Libertyville from Waukegan. So the monks would have been crossing the road going from east to west. And as I'm looking at the monks, at first, nothing struck me out of the ordinary except that these 2 men didn't even bother to look for traffic. And I was like, man, how's that for having faith in God, That was one of my thoughts. And I looked at their outfits, and monks, they wear the long black cloak. There really isn't anything very descriptive about that. They were both wearing that, but they kind of struck me as just being a little old-fashioned. And they had on little box black hats, and of course they had the black shoes. Well, when I glanced down at their shoes, I was struck by something so odd and so foreign to me that it didn't compute in my brain for quite a few seconds. Their shoes, although their feet were moving, their shoes were not touching the ground. They were floating. And I turn to Debbie. I say to her, do you see this? She goes, yeah, I see the two monks. And I was just like, okay. She was seeing what I was seeing. But to this day, she does not remember seeing them floating. I saw them floating. And they reached the opposite side of the highway. And as soon as they touched that side of the highway, they both disappeared completely. And I'm like this now, glued to the passenger window, straining, thinking, oh, this has got to be some odd trick of the light, and I'm looking, and I'm like, no, nothing looks weird. No sudden, how sometimes the clouds can suddenly pass over and it makes everything slightly darker and things kind of lose their detail. It was a bright sunny day. I remember that specifically. So there was no odd cloud cover or anything going on to alter the lighting on this area of Route 21 where we were. And Debbie gasps. And I said, did you see that? Did you see that? She goes, did they just disappear? And I'm like, yeah. And then I point and I say, there's a monastery back in there. And so we both figured the reason these monks did not look either way is because they had no need to. They were dead. No car could be a threat to them. It might also be that perhaps they were from a point in time when they were actually living before that highway was even there. I don't know how old Route 21 is. I will have to look it up. I'll research it and put it down here, and I will try to find the address for that monastery. I'll also put it on the screen in case any of you live anywhere in the area and you'd like to go check it out. Debbie and I saw the same thing. Now, what I'd like to do is read to you her email, and she is speaking of us in the third person, so I shall do that as well, because I did ask her, please type up what you remember to the best of your ability so I can read it on my channel. So Debbie, I know you're watching. Thank you so much for this. So here we go. Here's what I came up with about the monks that we saw on Route 21. And she titles it, Mary and Debbie's Experience with the Monks, 1981 or 82. Mary and Debbie were in Debbie's Chevy Chevette, and we were on Illinois Route 21 going south when we passed a monastery. As we were driving down Route 21 with a speed limit of between 45 and 55 miles an hour, it varies because there's little towns along Route 21, so anytime you're nearing a town, the speed limit will go down to 45. We saw two men. They were monks, dressed in all black. Now this is where it gets interesting because she saw the same thing I did. They had black box-like hats on their heads and black shoes. And I distinctly remember that. She goes on to say, I remember one being slightly taller than the other one. They both had beards and shorter hair, I think. Debbie was driving and stopped when we saw the monks crossing the road. I don't even remember them watching for cars, which they didn't. I believe they just walked across the street. Mary believes their feet were 2 to 3 inches off the ground. And Debbie does not remember their feet ever touching the ground. So something odd, definitely. They walked right in front of us, and as they came to the other side of the road, would have been going west, they just vanished. We realized that there was a monastery on the east side of Route 21 that Mary was the first to see, and said that was where the monks must have come from. Both Debbie and Mary were very freaked out and kept questioning if we saw what we actually saw. Needless to say, we kept questioning what we saw, which we did. The rest of the drive, and when we were, for days, weeks later, we kept bringing it up, and like, you know I saw what I saw, and you know, and she'd be like, I know I saw what I saw, and we saw the same thing. And so what has to fall neatly into place to have two different people see the exact same full body, solid apparition? Those of you who are into the scientific side of the paranormal, perhaps you can explain this to myself and my subscribers in a comment below. All I can tell you about the circumstances that day is we were probably going about 45, because I'm pretty sure the speed limit near the monastery lowers to 45 because the monastery is there. So I'm guessing we were going about 40 to 45 miles an hour, so not incredibly fast. And Debbie remembers coming to a full stop. Honestly, I don't remember that, only because I was so caught up with staring out my window at nothing, because the monks just weren't there. They should have been, there goes Michael again. They should have been right there. There was nowhere for them to go. It was open grass. And like I said, it was a very bright sunny day. There was no fog, no rain. There was no type of atmospheric disturbance. Just a wonderful sunny day. So I don't know. To this day, I don't know if anyone else has recorded witnessing monks along Route 21. They may have. I'm going to Google that, and if there is information about that, I'll post it in a comment below with a link of where you can go to check it out. And I will post the information about where the monastery is located, in case anyone wants to go along driving there on a bright sunny day. You might see some ghostly monks, which did not look ghostly to us at all. They were completely solid. So that is one of the very rare occurrences when I have shared the exact same paranormal experience with another person. Have you shared any experiences with anyone of a paranormal nature? If so, drop a comment, or as always, feel free to email me your experiences at truetalesoftheparanormal@gmail.com. I would love to read them, and maybe even have you share them on my channel. But thank you so much for watching. I am Nefer Kefri, your hostess with the ghostess. You've been watching True Tales of the Paranormal.